They're doing God's work. And I'm going to tell you about that on the DNVR Broncos podcast. Henry, you pick up on that reference yet?
God's
No, you
work.
haven't. So, Todd, I definitely know you haven't picked up on it because I'm going to ask you a question to start off this show, but I got to welcome you in to the DNVR Broncos podcast. We've got Henry Chisholm. We've got Todd Davis. We've got you here behind the camera, and we are coming to you live from the DNVR Bar, where we were just at the Broncos' third OTA practice, the first one open to media, and we learned a lot. And Henry, have you still picked up on that yet?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You don't know what we're talking about yet. Okay,
No.
so Todd,
Yes.
during practice, Sean Payton came over and talked to the media, which is the first time that that's ever happened to me since covering the team for 9 years. I believe John Fox used to do this back in the day where he would come over like during special teams periods, during warm-up, during stretch. And Sean was very open and honest about how the practice was going. Let's just say he was very happy about how it was going compared to past year in Denver. There's one major change that's happened in that past year. Picking
Safeties.
up where, the safety position. That's exactly it. And then after practice, Sean continued to just say how happy he was about the quarterback room, and he used a comparison analogy. What's the right word, Henry?
Metaphor would be the word.
He used a metaphor for the quarterbacks. Can you guess what metaphor he used for the three quarterbacks? He kind of grouped them all in one, and then used a metaphor.
I don't know what you said. They were doing God's work. Maybe he called them saints. No.
Oh, that would be a good one. I mean, he does love talking about the New Orleans Saints. Adopt, don't shop. I think that's Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos' new philosophy when it comes to the quarterback position.
Adopt, don't shop.
Adopt, don't shop.
That was what he said about
That's
it?
not what he said, but it's kind of hinting to what he said about
You
him.
lost me completely.
I don't know what this has to do with God.
Maybe it's another
Well,
piece
he's saving dogs. He called the Broncos quarterbacks orphan dogs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. To earlier in the day, he used the word rescue dogs. And then today he said orphan, or after practice, he said orphan dogs, talking about Zach Wilson, Bo Nix, and Jarrett Stidham. Why is he calling them orphan dogs?
Ooh, that's tough. I mean,
It's tough being called an orphan dog, or it's tough
being an orphan dog, it's always
it
tough.
is,
I
it
think, you know
is.
what I'm saying? Because, when you're at your orphan dog and you're at the kennel, I mean, you only have so many days before.
Yeah.
You
So-
gotta get
You might have
adopted
just
quick.
saved some lives, I think is what he's saying.
And is he wrong with Zach Wilson and Jarrett Stidham? Not in terms of their life, of course, but in terms of their NFL career.
Ooh, it's pretty close. Yeah.
I mean, Jarrett Stidham, now he's making $5 million, but they just brought two guys in to compete with him. That's a little tough. This is his third team now, I believe. And then when it comes to Zach Wilson, he was just traded for less than a 7th round pick. Now, draft picks don't always mean everything. Todd, you're a great example of that. But when you were the number 2 overall pick in the draft and you're traded a couple years later for less than a 7th round pick, you kind of gotta start your career and get it going soon. So what Sean was saying was these guys kind of bounced around, and we're picking them up, and we need to get them confident again. We need to get them going again, and we're kind of saving their careers is how I took what he said. Now, Bo Nix, I have no idea. He is the $10,000 puppy that you just paid from a groomer or from a breeder
Purebred.
for when he's the 12th overall pick in the draft. But
Yeah.
he said, I think maybe because he's coming from the college game and just needs to learn.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the way Sean's taking it with the quarterbacks. They're orphan dogs.
So he's Pops.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. He's doing God's work. He's adopting these dogs and grooming them
God does?
back to life and feeding
Like I
them
would.
and making sure that they're not scared. That's dad right now.
I think I missed
That's
the
their
part
dad.
of the Bible where God was adopting dogs and saving them.
Well, he
He's
adopts
saving
us
people.
all into his family.
Thank you,
Even
Todd.
dogs?
Oh my
Even
gosh,
dogs?
he's trying to like kill me right now.
They say all
Just
dogs go
dogs
to heaven.
were
All
dogs.
dogs go to
What do you
heaven.
mean?
Don't
Yeah.
they?
You
They're like
say
a-
that. That was that
You know?
cartoon movie. Yeah,
It was a movie. Yeah. Great
yeah.
movie. Great movie.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, so he told
You
them
never
that
seen
too. I haven't.
seen
I
that.
actually
You
really
never seen it
wanted.
either?
No, I really wanted to when
You
I
guys
was little,
are
but it was one of
asleep.
those.
I know
just
you haven't
never
seen it 'cause
happened.
you
Oh,
have-
for sure. I didn't even know it was a movie.
Yeah,
In fact,
so
one of the bits on the betting show that we used to have here at DNVR. Now it's not a full show, but one of the things there was they did a segment called "All Dogs Go to Heaven," and they picked like underdogs.
Yep.
I thought they were being creative coming up with that headline. I got to take away all of the credit I gave them. Nope, they just stole it from a movie.
They sure
Yeah, that's
did.
tough. Also, so Sean told the quarterbacks that they were orphan dogs,
Mm-hmm. Right to their face.
and Jarrett Stidham brought that up and said, he mentioned it today. I kind of let him go with it. I don't know where it came from. Which
Yeah,
is such like a it's such like a dad joke. Like
and then he
they just sit
started.
there and just like, oh, okay,
And then he
okay,
started.
whatever.
And then he started barking.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
Nobody started barking. Nobody started
Could
barking.
you imagine?
That would be crazy.
Zach Wilson also was asked by the media hard-hitting questions today. What type of dog would he be if he was an orphan dog? What dog do you think he would say, Todd?
Shoot, maybe German Shepherd,
He said a Chihuahua. No, I'm kidding. He said a Husky.
Husky.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, a big, strong dog. You know, he's a Utah guy. Fun fact
Yeah.
on Zach Wilson. Guess how many games, NFL games, he'd been to before he was an NFL player?
Probably same as me, 0.
One more than you.
Okay, there.
But well, actually,
Depends.
half a game more than you.
Yeah.
He'd been to a preseason game,
Okay.
a Broncos preseason game in Denver. You went to 0 before.
0. Yeah, I never been to a
Wow.
pro games. I played in one.
That's pretty cool.
Have you
That's
been to one
pretty baller.
since?
Oh
Because you didn't go to that Raider
Yeah,
game.
you went to.
yeah, I went to a game with.
because you did the coin toss.
Oh yeah, Broncos.
Oh
game.
yeah, there you go.
Well, it's
There we go.
preseason, so half a
Oh,
game.
half
You're tied.
Have you been to any other one?
No, I'm working at this place called DNVR. on Sunday.
We gave you the invite to come, and you're like, I've been to too many games there. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool flex. Okay, so these orphan dogs are now battling for the starting quarterback position, and leading up till today, we didn't know how Sean Payton was truly going to handle this quarterback battle, because about him, or when we asked about it after the draft, when we asked about a rookie minicamp, he blew it off as though it was Mike Malone's stupid question. If you wanted to go that way, like, not worried about that, but we'll figure it out. Of course, like downplaying the most important thing on his team, but he doesn't want people to take something and run with it, so he really downplayed it. And today we found out that Jarrett Stidham took the first team reps on Tuesday's practice. Zach Wilson took the first team reps on Wednesday's practice. And Bo Nix took the first team reps at today's practice. And Sean said we're going to continue to do that. Everyone's getting first team reps. They are in no hurry. In fact, in the words of Sean Payton, he said it's going to work itself out. Again today, he talked about it as like, oh, you guys are asking about the starting quarterback? We don't need to worry about that, essentially. And we saw from the actions, they are making this an equal competition between Jarrett Stidham, Zach Wilson, and Bo Nix.
I think it all will play itself out. I don't know if it's truly equal though. Like, even though people are, separating reps, you have your favorite dog. You know what I'm saying? You have the dog that even though they're all underdogs, you have the dog that you are like pulling for the most, right?
Is that the same with children or just dogs? You're the only one I can ask with experience here.
No, just dogs.
Okay, smart.
Because he's probably feeding one just a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? Petting it just a little bit often.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what's happening.
Wow. Yeah, probably. And I mean, when there's so much rotation going on all over the place, it doesn't seem like it's big of a deal. Like, it'd be one thing if it was just stationary, like, these are our 11 on offense, these are our 11 on defense. It is what it is. But even if you want to get Bo Nix kind of accustomed to the starting offense, there's so many moving pieces at tight end and receiver and running back. At this point of the year, it's not really – it's just about learning the offense.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what Sean Payton said today. And this reminds me of another time the Broncos had a quarterback competition. I believe it was Teddy and Drew, which you were here for, with the apparently favorite coach in the NFL, Vic Fangio, was your head coach here. At the end of OTAs, Vic said, OTAs in terms of like position battles is probably worth like 1%. And we were like, what were we doing with our time over this past month being here for 1% of this quarterback battle? And that's kind of the way Sean talked about it. He didn't actually use percentages, but just the way he was like, not worried about it right now. Is that true, Todd? Is OTAs like such a small, like we're not even talking 10% of evaluation on players and battles compared with like training camp and preseason leading up to the season when you have to make your roster and decide who starters are? Is it really that small of a percent?
No, I would say it would be more than like 1%. I would probably say like maybe 20%. I mean, you get a good amount of time with guys in the offseason. And training camp is like a month. Like, you got to get everything squared away in 1 month and know who your stars are, who's playing for you. Like, you got to have some kind of like knowledge going into training camp to really help you make those decisions through training camp. Because I think if we're still sharing reps the third week at training camp, okay, now I'm kind of getting nervous because the start of the season's right around the corner.
Yeah, to me, it's like qualifying. It's like NASCAR. Like. This is the part where everybody just goes and how fast can you do it? Like go around the track, do that sort of thing. And then that kind of sets up who is the starter for day one of training camp. Like kind of early positioning. Then from there you get to actually battle it out.
Well, thank you, Todd, for saying that's the truth. Because Sean Payton wants to downplay it, and not that wasn't against you, Henry. You just
I thought it was a good metaphor, yeah.
But it's Sean Payton wanting to downplay it. It's Vic Fangio wanting to it's the coaches wanting to downplay it when it really does mean something. But as the Toyota chat's saying right now, they're kind of calling BS, just like you did, Todd. Like, not actually believing that this is like a true 100% open competition between three different guys. The Toyota chat's saying, no, I'm not buying it. Someone has to have the lead, and I hope that's the case because we can't continue this third. You get one day, you get one day, you get one day. At the most important position in sports, when you need continuity, we can't keep doing this. If we want to do it for the first week of OTAs, that's fine. When mandatory minicamp rolls around in 3 weeks from now, I hope we're not doing this. I hope if we start to see separation, then we actually get to see that. But we got to see these guys on the field today. And let's break down what we saw from Bo Nix, Jarrett Stidham, and Zach Wilson, because I think there's already some separation after just watching one practice today. And I want to get into it after I give a shout out to our friends over at Circa Sportsbook. Man, we still got hockey playoffs. We still got NBA playoffs. In fact, I think for the next 2 weeks, the NBA has a playoff game every single night until the conference finals is over. So tonight, we get the Eastern Conference Finals, tomorrow, Western Conference Finals, and it just rotates every single day. And if you want to get on the action, Circa Sportsbook is the place to do it because they're going to give you the best splits. And what they mean by splits is they're going to take the smallest percentage out of each bet. They like to do that. They have tight money line splits, and that's why you see the big bettors go over to Circa Sports and use it. So if you want to go to the place where the pros go, that is Circa Sportsbook, where they are going to let you keep as much money as possible. They also have high app limits and transparency, and they've got great customer service as well because there's real people behind the Circa Sportsbook brand, not just the brand, but that's how they set their lines as real people, not just like going to other sports books and stealing their lines. A lot of people actually take from them because they have real people going. So if you want to go to the place where you're getting the best lines, go to Circa Sportsbook. And you can also visit the Circa Sportsbook Casino in Las Vegas if you're out there. So head to the App Store, download the Circa Sportsbook, or go to circasports.com. Circa Sports bets can only be made while physically located in the state of Colorado. Must be 21 or older. All rights reserved. Circa Sportsbook Colorado encourages you to gamble responsibly. If you have a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER or visit problemgamblingcolorado.org.
And if you're lonely, or if you're like a washed up, like kind of athlete, not like you, Todd, but like from my...
I wasn't even thinking about myself.
Now
I feel like I'm thinking about it.
Well, no, it just happened.
No, when he said you're lonely, I was like...
No, I'm not lonely.
If you're lonely, go adopt a dog. An orphan
That's
dog.
a big commitment. I can't recommend a pet to anybody. But what you can do is join Volo, and you can run around, you can meet some people, you can fill some of your lonely nights. And the best way to do it is with their monthly membership, the Volo Pass, because if you do that and you use the code DNVR3, it's only $10 a month for the first 3 months, and you get unlimited access to pickups and league drop-ins. You get league discounts up to $50. There's free or discounted access to tournaments, fitness classes, events. It's a great way to meet people, and even after those first 3 months are up, it's only $20 a month from there. So if you want to meet people, if you want to get active, if you want to play games, they've got all sorts of different sports all over the Denver metro area, and you can sign up on the Volo app. If you use the code DNVR3, get the Volo Pass for only $10 a month for the first 3 months.
All right, so let's get into it and tell you what happened at Broncos OTAs today. Like we said, Bo Nix was the starting quarterback today. Henry, what did you see from these 3 quarterbacks?
Well, the one play that stands out the most was Zach Wilson threw the only interception. And I think that's kind of
starting with the negative.
I mean,
right.
If you're trying to like separate things out, that was the biggest separator of everything, because without getting too deep in the details, it was more like just running through a list of plays than it was like move the ball or red zone or those sorts of things. So there were no like high leverage moments. There were no like attempts to throw touchdowns. It was a lot of just like you're running a play against the defense. And for the most part, it went really well. You know, the ball did not hit the ground very often. The offense seemed to know what it was doing. They hit a couple throws down the field. They hit some short throws that looked like they could have gone for longer. There were some checkdowns too. But I thought in general they did pretty well. I think Zach Wilson again had the low light, and so that probably puts him in the worst position, having seen one of the 3 days so far. But I think Bo Nix and Jarrett Stidham were pretty comparable.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like offense, though, the only knock on them is that they do script the practice, and they're able to see exactly what the defense is in. And so early on, I feel like offense always looks better than defense because it takes a little more time to get those offensive coaches away from the script and kind of start doing like the free periods where we're actually calling plays on the run. So, you know, it's expected for the offense to look kind of crisp early on in OTAs for sure.
Speaking of offense looking crisp, if you are listening on the audio side of this, we thank you for that. But you might want to watch on YouTube, because we have some crisp shots that our guy RG took. Little slow-mo highlights from Bo Nix tossing the rock. This one, a completion, of course, with no defense on him, to, let's see, his boy Troy Franklin there. And Todd, I think along those lines, this was a practice that Sean Payton loved. And it wasn't because like the offense just dominated because they had the script. In fact, it was probably a defensive day. In fact, in the team periods, the defense was hooting and hollering a little more than the offense was. A lot of batted passes at the line of scrimmage. I've actually heard that the defensive line's been very active and very impressive the first 3 days of OTAs. And I think we got to see that again. Lot of pressure on really every single quarterback. So one of the things that Bo Nix is supposed to be good at is getting the ball out quick. Well, the pressure was there even quicker. And Bo, understandably so, he's not working as quick and processing as quick as he did at Oregon because there's so much more going on. Players are so much faster. Linebackers are so much faster. And the defensive line so much bigger, getting the hands in the face. But what I think Sean Payton really liked about this practice was the quarterback's operating how he likes. And I think we really got to see that today. And what I mean by that is quick decisions, even if there was pressure, quarterbacks making a quick decision to move out, quarterbacks keeping their eyes toward the defense, not turning in the opposite direction. And you really did see a difference just in this first practice of how Sean Payton wants to run an offense as opposed to how Sean Payton felt he had to run an offense with Russell Wilson as his quarterback this year. And I think we're going to hear that a lot from Sean. We got some hints of it when he was at the podium today as well. But a lot of short passes, a lot of easy decisions. Now, it could be because it's the very first week of OTAs with some younger quarterbacks. Really, Jarrett Stidham has 1 year of experience in this system under his belt. Zach Wilson has 3 practices. Bo Nix has 5-6 practices, including rookie minicamp. But I really think that today we got a glimpse of what a Sean Payton offense is going to look like. And it's a lot of dink and dunk. It's a lot of quick decision making. And if I were to tell you that heading into the draft, we probably all would have said, like, well, isn't Bo Nix like the perfect guy for this system? So it really, really does make sense. And I even think that Sean was looking at practice today and watching Bo and the other quarterbacks, but really Bo, and in his mind saying, this is way closer to Drew Brees than really anyone I could have got this offseason.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big comparison. Going back to the pressure, though, that was Nick Bonito. There were a couple times he beat Garrett Bowles pretty cleanly, which, again, like, that's the thing about all these practices is for all the good there's like an equal amount of bad. The thing is, I'm not worried about Garrett Bowles because we've seen him for years now. Nick Bonito looked really quick. I thought the defensive line, you brought that up, in particular in the running game, is where it showed up. It felt like things were collapsing. There were a couple times Alex Singleton was flying in. I also think with the pressure, the pocket collapsing, it's tough when you're watching those practices. You can't see everything, especially when you're on field level. It's not like the TV view or even like the opportunity to have replay. So it could be that there was nobody open either. And that's the other piece there with a couple of times Bo couldn't find anybody and leaked out. And you're like, it's probably a sack.
So, Henry, you kind of took Zach off the competition of who won the day.
Yeah.
Who would you say won the day from the quarterback spot?
It was pretty close. I don't think there's anything that really separates either of them. I think it'd go Bo, because I think Stidham had like a ball batted at the line. And again, like we're really getting
every single quarterback had a ball.
Was there? Okay.
Batted at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I don't think there really wasn't much separation.
And so that is exactly why we need to stop the BS. Bo should be the starting. If Bo is this close where like you can put whatever number on a quarterback and you don't know who it is, wouldn't you go with the number 12 overall pick? Like for me, there has to be some clear separation for it to be like, you know what, Bo clearly does need some time. Jarrett does look like the vet in this scenario, and Bo looks like the rookie. Go with the vet here. And to me, I agree. Like it was a coin flip between Jarrett and Bo. Zach Wilson showed some good things. I mean, he wasn't like drastically far off from there.
2 mistakes.
The interception he threw was to what linebacker?
That was just safety Omar Brown, undrafted from Nebraska.
Love that.
We do love that. We
that.
do love that, but how many people in the Toyota chat have heard of safety Omar Brown before?
We got some diehards in there.
He was rocking with the third team and he threw the pick.
Oh, yeah.
Like, maybe not the best look on the first day of OTA. So that's why I agree. I think it was Bo and Jarrett Stidham. And the biggest compliment that I can give to Bo is he was out there competing with the number 2 overall pick, who is in the first year of an offense. And Jarrett Stidham, a guy that's been in the NFL for a couple of years, started a number of games and was in this system last year. And in the very first week, Bo looked just as comfortable as those guys. And it kind of reminded me back to rookie minicamp. I was thinking like, man, Bo looks so comfortable. He's telling the other rookies where to go on the field. He never looked lost. I kind of got that same vibe today. Like he just felt like a veteran. He was not lighting the world on fire. He was not Peyton Manning out there throwing, not having a single pass hit the ground. He did not throw in interceptions though. I don't actually believe he threw any ball in harm's way. I think there was one ball that was thrown to receiver's feet and just not a good pass, but it wasn't like it was thrown into a wide receiver. But like catchable though. Like the receiver, it wasn't perfect placement, but the receiver caught it. And so that's my biggest takeaway is Bo is at least on the same level as these other guys. So Sean's not going to name a starter after the third practice of OTAs. I get that, but the fact that he's anywhere close to them, he is going to be the starter, and that is the best news because people are saying, how does Bo compare to other rookie quarterbacks that have been out here? Very different. I've seen some other quarterbacks, Todd, when you were on the field, rookie quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round along with Bo a couple of years before that you could tell that first day, like, oh boy. Hopefully he can develop quickly because he's got a lot of developing to do, and that just has not been the case with both the 2 full practices we've watched.
I think that's really good. I think we do gotta like take into consideration like this day 3 of practice. Like it's a vanilla playbook. Like I think Sean, maybe he's waiting to see like, okay, we're doing all these dink and dunks right now, but I have a whole playbook full of intermediate routes and then also deep shots. Can we hit those too? Can we make a check at the line when we see single high? I think he wants to see the offense truly ran. I think that's what's maybe holding him back. I do think Bo's going to be the starter, but I think if you move him from quarterback, like, was there really any separation out of the receivers? Was there really any separation from like the safeties? I mean, like, I don't know if you see as much. Day 3 of OTAs.
Exactly.
So you said the word vanilla, and that's actually a word that I think it was Zach Wilson. Maybe it was, I think it was Zach Wilson that used that word. One of the guys we talked to after practice, either Jarrett Stidham, Zach Wilson, or Josh Reynolds on the offensive side, used the term vanilla. It's still vanilla right now. At what point does it change? Do you get a little more spice thrown in, and then you can really see how quarterbacks and other players are adapting with more to it?
In like 2 weeks.
Okay.
Week and a half.
Still this offseason program.
Yeah. This offseason program, you'll see it. And they'll like, just tap it a little bit. I don't know if that sounds crazy, but they'll just like, get to it just a little bit of it. It doesn't get into the full nitty gritty. You know what I'm saying? You'll see a little bit more in like in mini camp, where it's not optional. But I think they touch on it a little bit, and then they kind of dial it back, and then once again when training camp starts, that's just like we're putting everything in that we put in the first 3 days in OTAs. We're putting it all in day 1 of training camp. You got to be able to run with it.
Right. And that's apparently an area where Bo has really excelled at, from what Sean said about how impressed he was at their private workouts when he gave Bo tons of information the night before. They met with him the next day, and he was blown away by that. I think that has transferred over. And even after practice, Sean said good things about all 3 quarterbacks, even with Zach Wilson throwing an interception today, said they're all doing well. But specifically, he did really praise Bo and said the one thing that really stood out to me about Bo was he said he is further along than most quarterbacks in his situation, or all quarterbacks in his situation would be. So he's not really holding back on the Bo hype, except for saying you only get starter reps 1 of every 3 days.
Yeah. No, I mean, you couldn't have asked much more of him. That's for sure. I mean, there were a couple plays with the pocket collapse, and he had to kind of, like, it was a sack. But again, like, that's all you can really point to. And who knows if things were open? Who knows if the receivers were running the wrong routes? Because there were definitely a couple times it's easier to tell when they're doing like the routes on air. It's also easy to tell when the coach yells at somebody for running the wrong route. But there's just like guys on top of each other. Same thing in 7-on-7s. There are a couple times you're like, there's no way you were. Hey, nice. Where you're like, you're not supposed to be right there. And the younger guys, I think, struggled with some of that. But again, like when you're running the full team drills, it's tougher to see live. Like if you have a chance to watch it again, then you can definitely see it. But I wouldn't be surprised if those couple of times things broke down, at least half of them weren't on him.
So would you say we started the show outside of your first remark, Henry, with the good news? I would say this is good news from the quarterback position.
Yeah, all of it sounds good.
Definitely good news.
Bo, I am continued to be encouraged by Bo instead of discouraged. And it is still early. And you do take it with a little grain of salt, but you know what? This is the only grain of salt we're given right now. So you make of it what it is, and I've been impressed with it. There was a little bit of bad news and a little bit of unexpected bad news that we need to get into. So let's talk about other things besides just the quarterbacks from OTAs today. And I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Red Hawk Roofing, because they will take bad news and turn it into good news. If you need any help with your roof, Red Hawk Roofing is the place to turn to, because they have quality materials, decades of experience, quick response time. They're Colorado's best estimators and contractors, and they're huge DNVR supporters. And on top of that, they're going to give you a free no-obligation roof and property inspection and free in-depth photo reports for all of your inspections. Hail season is coming, so don't wait to take care of this issue before more storms hit. And they're going to give you a free upgrade to hail impact resistant shingles. Like I said, they're big DNVR supporters. They've been part of our family and community for a long time, so you know you can trust them. We've given them our stamp of approval, so check them out if you're looking for a new roof over your home or business over at redhawkroofing.com, and make sure to tell them that DNVR sent you.
And shout out to Premier Members Credit Union, PMCU. They definitely love to get you covered and make sure that you're saving money the way that you need to with great interest rates, and that your credit is actually on point too, because we all know once you get grown, your credit really matters. Doesn't matter so much as a young kid, but you learn very quick with good credit.
One or two mistakes, and you're like, no.
Oh, man. you can have money in the bank, and they still won't let you buy the car. But there are a lot of financial institutions out there, but here's the one I want you to remember. Premier Members Credit Union. They're not a bank, which means they do things differently, like putting their members first with higher saving interest and lower loan rates. This is an organization that serves the community and the Colorado community in particular. With PMCU, you get local branches, friendly tellers, and tools you need to save smarter. Like their new high-yield savings account, you can earn 5% APY on your first $2,000 with their reserve tier money market. When you become a new member at PMCU, you get $200. You just have to open a checking account and sign up for e-statements. It's that easy. This will be your best money move yet. Head to becomepremier.com to find out. I feel like you keep looking at me. What's going on?
No, I'm just
not just looking at you, smiling.
Yeah, I'm like,
that's funny.
And he's blushing.
I'm trying to read, and I feel like he just got this heat on me. I'm like, what the heck is going on?
Breathing down your neck.
I'm just very excited. So our friend Willie Thomas, longtime listener here, don't like the new joke of saying pause, had to share it. We appreciate that with all feedback. Keep it in mind. It's just ironic that this comes up today because as we were at practice, a couple media people, one was in the bathroom. He came out of the bathroom. Somebody else asked him, hey, have you seen Willie? And it was like the biggest pause moment I've ever been a part of. Like, have you seen Willie? And his name is Willie, so it's just kind of a fun time.
That is wild. Speaking of the Toyota chat, I want to give a shout out because we've got a lot of awesome comments, pretty popping today. People wanted to hear about OTAs. And then a lot of people just giving us some love. Like Alex says, let's drop some likes, people. Let's get those likes up. Also, Ian Darby says just the truth. He says, I still feel it's so surreal seeing Todd there. I literally remember him as a rookie playing football games, using him in Madden. Pause. Haha, all seriousness, so awesome. Willie Thomas, don't get mad at me. That was Ian Darby in there. True. But a lot of people, and of course, Edward, DNVR Broncos show is the best in Denver. Thank you guys all so much for your support. We love doing this and bringing you the up-to-date Broncos news.
Also, somebody brought up, there was a Reddit thread, and I saw it, where somebody said, I hate all of the players. I feel like that's totally backwards. Like, I told you about Jaquan McMillan and Nate Adkins, and I love Lil Jordan, and I love Jalen Virgil, and
okay.
Pause. We can pause on the pause. Shout out Willie. Good time to pause the pauses. But yeah, no, I feel like I love more players on this roster than anybody else.
Well, we did start the show, and you started with some negative news right off the top. So you're not helping yourself today.
I think I love Zach Wilson more than anybody in this room.
Maybe so.
I don't think anybody's going to argue either.
I'd say he's a good-looking dude. We got to see him today for the first time. So this time of year, they also bring out a bunch of like coaches from like college programs and give them a chance to like see how practices are run. Coach from Montana State there today.
You nervous?
No, I think he was. Yeah.
Alex Singleton loved to see that.
They were walking together, and I kept it to myself.
Yeah, you wouldn't
didn't need
have
any blood at practice
today. That. Okay, so unfortunately, I said there was some bad news. We are not surprised to hear that Courtland Sutton was not there. We're not surprised to hear that John Franklin Myers was not there. It was reported by Chris Thomason that he wouldn't be here this week, maybe even next week too, but he is going to be there. He's taking care of some business back in Texas is how it was reported. So not worried about that. He seems like he's going to walk in and immediately be a leader of this team. And then also DJ Jones not there, but I believe it's being reported by Mike Kliss that don't worry about it. He's been at OTAs. He's going to be at OTAs. He just had to miss today. I don't want to look into it too much. If those guys aren't here, next week and the week after in mandatory minicamp, that's when you really look into it, because it hasn't come out that those guys are looking for new contracts. And certainly I don't think DJ and specifically JFM is going to be looking for a new contract, since he just got a new contract
That'd be
from
crazy.
the Broncos. So Courtland is the biggest name that's not here for a known reason of looking for a new deal. But we talked about that a lot yesterday. So that just meant a lot more reps for the younger guys. And now Josh Reynolds, we got to see him for the first time today, number 11. He's the veteran of the room when Courtland's out right now, because it's Court and the kids yesterday. Now it's Josh and the kids, because it's Josh Reynolds and then Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, Jalen Virgil. You have Devon Vele. And by the way, it is so weird seeing Tim Patrick in a number 12 jersey standing right next to a guy that is the exact same stature as him, exact same build, wearing his old number 81. Broncos fans are not going to get over that for a long time until they see it on the field many games now. But so that was kind of the biggest thing, but that wasn't the unexpected bad news. You guys remember 2 days ago when we talked about what we wanted to see at OTAs, Todd, the number one thing outside of quarterbacks you wanted to see was health?
Yep.
Do you remember who I pointed to that I said wanted to see healthy?
We all do.
Yeah.
Mr. Glass.
He was broken today. He was on the side field. Greg Dulcich on the side field. And when we say the side field, it means you're not practicing because you are hurt.
Yep.
And Greg Dulcich was on the side field. And it's just, it sucks for him. But like, I'm not saying they have to cut him, but you cannot count on Greg Dulcich anymore. This is now the 4th or 5th time that he's had the exact same hamstring injury. It is just I feel so bad for him, but they haven't played football for 5 months right now, and he still doesn't feel good enough to like do a run through of practice. Like, there's no pads on. You just have helmets on and that's it. It's wild just how bad this injury appears to be.
Yeah. So you go through attendance at the beginning and you're like, okay, there's number 0, there's number 1, there's number 2. And then you get to Greg Dulcich and you're like, wait, where's no, not Greg. Like, how is Greg the one who's not here? And then you look over to the side field and you're like, oh, because at that point you're like, I don't even want to see him over there. Like, just hope that it's his little brother's graduation or something like that, and he's just out of town. But no, it's just so disheartening to see. And Sean said afterward, like, this isn't he's going to be out until training camp, and we'll see him then. He said, like, he'll be back before that. It's not like a long-term thing. But every time you see it, like, it's one of those things, like, if another player's over there, like, let's just not name names because that's bad luck. But if you see somebody else over there, like, probably a little thing. Like when Mike Purcell was here, about half the time he was over there, mostly like because he's played so much and like it's such like a physical position. Like they just give him some off days. But when it's Greg, it's just sad.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, man, it's been a long time since he's really been back on that field. And they've been off for a long time. So since January. So you would think that got your body right, you know what I'm saying? You get healthy. If you go down to Costa Rica, take a steroid or two. I don't know what you need. But it is kind of sad to see him over there once again. And then it's like, do you hope for the best? Do you save the roster spot? I mean, do you go out there in free agency? I mean, I don't know, because it just seems like he always finds himself in that position. And I think especially OTAs, I mean, we really shouldn't be having a lot of guys getting injured, and everybody should be pretty healthy. And especially coming into OTAs, this is very, very early on. Yep. And if it's the same thing and those hamstrings, they do nag. I mean, it sucks. It really like impedes your ability to run full speed and make the cuts you need to make. But I don't know if it's what he's eating, you know, how he's taking care of his body. I don't know if it's the altitude, like he's not getting enough blood to like, muscles. But I think there definitely is a problem, and they need to figure it out. They need to fix it.
And what sucks is he had those issues his rookie season with the injuries. When he played, he was electric. His very first catch went for, a 40-yard touchdown or something against the Chargers in Los Angeles in front of all his friends and family, because that's where he's from, but was only able to play a couple of games his rookie season. Then last offseason, he said he felt great the entire offseason. He said he changed everything to do things to help his hamstring. Everything surrounding his training last year was about making his hamstring stronger. And then before the season even started, he had a hamstring injury. I think like the first play back in the season, he got another hamstring injury. And now something is still going on there. And Sean really downplayed it again, said, he's just kind of finishing up his rehab from seeing a lot of different doctors like he did over the season last year. He said he's close to practicing and that he's going to be back sooner than later. His rehab is going well. And like Henry said, Sean said he's going to be back before camp. But to me, I'm taking, again, that with an absolute grain of salt, because why would a coach come out and be negative and pessimistic to the media about injuries? At this time, typically injuries from coaches are talked about in a very nonchalant way. He is going to be back. And then you know what? If he's not back by training camp, then it's just going to be pushed down the road a little bit. And we're not going to like go back and be like, so you lied to us back in May. No. So it's easy for a coach just to kind of kick the can down the road. So that's kind of how I'm viewing it, because unfortunately, this is nothing personal towards Greg, but his hamstring has lost all of my trust. I do not trust Greg's hamstring one bit at all anymore. And Sean kind of took the same exact approach with Courtland Sutton. When asked about Courtland Sutton not being here, he said, I'm not worried. Courtland's the ultimate pro. He's going to come back here. I'm not worried about that. Everything's going to work itself out. So that's Sean. He's going to do this with every single injury, with every single contract thing that comes up until training camp. Then I think that's when maybe he changes his tone. But I'm not counting on Greg for much.
No.
Yeah. And from my experience, this is just like what I've seen and what I've experienced. Hamstrings are like a 2-week thing, and if they linger, it could take you 3.5 to get back healthy. I mean, he hasn't played since week 6. So that's 11 weeks in the regular season. Plus, that's January, then you got February, March, April, May. That's 4 more months. Like, this is a long time for one hamstring. Like, 4 months plus 11, I mean, that's almost 7 months. I mean, Drew Sanders is going to be back from his from his Achilles before 7 months. I'm like, dang, this is a long time. I mean, I hope he gets healthy, I hope he gets right, but this thing is really lingering.
Yeah, big time. And speaking of Drew Sanders, that was the other injury update. Sean did say that it happened. He said, fortunately, it happened early in the offseason program. He just alluded to it being him. He just jumped weird and landed on it weird, kind of a freak injury that happened. He's already had surgery. And Sean pointed to October to when Drew could be back, but then walked it back immediately, said I don't want to put any timetable on it. We talked about this already. My philosophy is just if you're going to rush a rookie or a second-year guy back who has a lot to learn at his position because he hasn't played that position full-time for his entire life, what are you doing? But the Broncos have a vision for him to potentially be back this year.
Yeah. Oh, and what he said was, we'll bring him back. I don't want to say October, but the good news is the surgery is done. It was clean. So read into that how you want.
Do you want to say September then? Do you want to say November? What are we saying?
Just don't want to say October. Yeah. I think going back to the tight ends, the good news is Lucas Kroll looked awesome today. Who, I've been a little bit hesitant on him just because, older prospect, had a couple opportunities, didn't necessarily love what he did last year when he got those opportunities. I think I'm ready to say that I love Lucas Kroll. Add him to the list. I think you just see the speed that he has. And there was one play that I think he would really like to have back. It was just this big crossing route. It was a great throw. Do you remember who threw that ball? Was it Bo? It was a great throw. Just deeper crossing route. And he reached yards, out. Yeah, just about was able to bring it in, but couldn't quite get that one. If he got that one.
It was a perfect throw.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If he caught that one, though, I'd be saying, no, there's your starting tight end this year. After one practice, which is crazy, but that's the kind of day that he had.
Well, I'm certainly not going to blame one drop and say you're not a starting tight end anymore. If Greg Dulcich isn't playing, he is your number one receiving option from the tight end position. And Sean Payton talked about it today, just how important it is to have a threat out of the backfield as a running back and from that tight end position as a receiver.
Blake Watson too.
Just look at who he's had in the past at the receiver or at the tight end position. He's had Jimmy Graham. He's had Jeremy Shockey. He's from the running back position in terms of receivers. He's had Darren Sproles. He's had Alvin Kamara. He's had Reggie Bush. He's had some of the best. He values that so much in the middle of the field, especially from that tight end position, that he has to have one of those guys. And if Greg Dulcich is not healthy and you can't count on him, Adam Troutman made that incredible catch for a touchdown last year. But that's about what he's going to provide you. A couple of catches a year, like 14 catches a year. Sean needs a lot more from that tight end position. And Lucas Kroll, not just with that one drop where he had a lot of separation. He might have made the most catches today of not just any tight end, but anyone on the field. He is going to be a featured part of this team. And he was talking to Lucas today on the field. And Sean told us after what he was telling him was, do you know what number Lucas Kroll wears?
Yep.
What number? That's okay. I wouldn't have known before today. He's number 85. And he said, not a lot of people know. He told this to Lucas. He said, not a lot of people know your name. They're going to know your name this year.
I think
you don't get to know your name after catching 10 balls. You get to know someone's name who's an undrafted, second-year guy? Mm-hmm. Undrafted second-year? When you're catching 40 passes, when you are the leading tight end in terms of receivers. So that is the guy who I agree with Henry. Yeah. In terms of who took the biggest jump today, it was Lucas Kroll.
It's funny. I feel like Henry falls in love so quick. Like, he needs one day, whether it's Bo or it's Kroll, he needs one day to love you. But, you could play the whole season and be Jaleel, and then Audric Estime Shelter. He's he's starting it right now.
He's talking about Blake Watson.
Week one's got a jersey, and he's like, I love him. He got to be in there now.
No. Week one, it's all Javonte.
Oh, my
It's all
God.
Javonte. Just those stretch runs. It's like the shotgun handoffs. That team cannot stop Javonte.
Speaking of Javonte,
Seahawks can't stop him.
Good news. Today he was running full speed. He looked, and again, no pads, so you take this with a grain of salt. Mm-hmm. He looked like the Javonte his rookie season, where he looked fast, he looked explosive, and no knee brace in sight, which was really good because if there's any questions, you're probably just wearing a knee brace during these and OTAs and stuff. If there's absolutely no questions at all, then that's when you're fine without the knee brace. So I thought that was a really good sign to see. And right now, I do think it's Javonte who's the starting running back for the Broncos.
Yeah, definitely, especially week one.
Oh,
again, against that defense,
now.
Against that defense, absolutely.
You said that defense is awful.
Yeah. No, there's no single guy who can tackle. You've got three good defensive linemen. You go nickel, you take one of them off the field. They've got those kind of bummy edge rushers. They've got Jerome Baker, who when we went back and watched Brandon Jones, we found Jerome Baker, not a good linebacker. Tyrell Dodson, undrafted guy, which doesn't mean he's bad, but comes over from Buffalo. You can run all over that if you keep that personnel out there. You just want to be able to stretch those edges, and Javonte can do that. Other thing with the Kroll thing, Sean was saying that he could see all of us, the media, looking down at our papers to see who he was. It's there's who's that 85 guy? But he did look good. Other one, Blake Watson, also did look good. First time, we saw him at the rookie mini camp, but when you see him out there, it's just different. And he does look like he fits.
Oh, here's
the quads
an issue, though.
were surprising.
Here's an issue, though, is Jaleel McLaughlin looked like the most explosive player on the field. So maybe just all running backs look good today.
They did look good.
When nobody can hit.
Exactly.
Making cuts.
Jaleel in particular.
Finishing in the end zone.
No pads, Jaleel is electric.
Henry, what were some other takeaways from you today? Obviously, Lucas Kroll is one of them.
Lucas Kroll was probably the biggest surprise. Nick Benito, I mentioned that. He was the other big one. I wonder if we haven't expanded who could be cornerback to them as widely as we should. Because Art Green, who we liked last year, he was the undrafted free agent out of Houston, ran I want to say he was a 4.2 guy.
Yeah, and he's 6'1", 6'2".
No, and he's one, I think what we said a lot last year was you watch his highlight tape and you'd be like, holy shit, this guy's incredible. How is he undrafted? And then the highlight tape ends after 90 seconds because he just didn't make those plays very often. Today, though, there was a big crossing route from David Sills, similar to the Lucas Kroll one, maybe not quite so deep, and he's just running stride for stride with him. And that long arm reaches out, swats the ball away, and that was, I think, the best play of the day from any DB. And you start to wonder if a guy like that, who's your prototypical boundary cornerback, after a year developing on the practice squad, could enter that competition. And I think he could. I also think we haven't really talked about Jaquan as a potential second cornerback, and we probably shouldn't, just because he's not, in the way that Art Green is very much built for that role, Jaquan isn't, and for that reason, I'd probably keep him inside, let him get really good at that, and then maybe next year see if you want to expand his role. But it might not just be Riley, Damari, Levi Wallace, Chris Abrams-Drain, I'd almost throw Art Green and Jaquan in there too as, less likely options. But I think that competition is actually very deep with a whole bunch of versatile guys who can move around. And I'm excited to see what happens.
I think those top two that you said, though, I think Riley Moss and Damari are going to be the guys. And an interesting thing today that we're going to follow, Pat Surtain did not do a lot of the team drills. Maybe it's just because the coaches are like, yep, you're so good, we don't need to see anything from you, not worth the injury risk having you out there. And then also, we got this battle where, as Henry says, we've got multiple guys that we want to get them all on the field to play. So, Pat, why don't you just take this day off, make it easier on Bo and Jarrett and Zach Wilson, plus we also get these younger guys on the field. Or if Pat's dealing with something, we'll do a little digging on that. Hopefully he's okay. But again, it is he was doing a lot of the individual drills, so he was certainly not working off on the side field like Greg Dulcich, where you're so worried about what's going on there. But yeah, cornerback, big one. In fact, Sean Payton after practice said running back, wide receiver, and secondary is where there's going to be so much competition. In fact, it seems like with those spots outside of Pat Surtain and like a Courtland Sutton if he's here, but since he's not here, it seems like all of those positions are just completely up for grabs. Like there's not a 1, 2, 3 and someone's fighting for the third spot. No, everything's just wide open at those spots. Outside of obviously Pat at corner and Brandon Jones being one of your starting safeties, because the other safety spot is open. But I think PJ Locke probably has the inside track there.
Yeah, I think him or Caden Stearns. I don't think it's too many guys. And I think that's just what I learned from like a training camp of OTAs. Like it looks like guys are good, and you'll see a lot of guys flash, and then like everybody kind of falls by the wayside, and the two guys you thought would be in the running are still the two guys in the running. So that may happen. You may have an undrafted free agent come up and surprise you too. You never know.
Yep.
But I love seeing the competition. I think it elevates everyone's game, allows them to play like a little bit more outside their body and on kind of like another level. Because when you got another person like gunning for your spot, man, you got to come ready to go. You got to come ready to play. So hopefully it kind of elevates this Broncos team as a whole.
Yeah, I mean that competition at receiver is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
We've talked through like the top 6 guys or so, with Lil Jordan being the 6th. But then you get to Brandon Johnson, who is obviously out there. Jalen Virgil back to full speed after tearing his ACL. Yeah, no, was that ACL or Achilles? I think that was ACL. That was ACL in the preseason game on that 50-yard catch where then he had to bring the ball in and the clock ran out before halftime. But he looks so sharp. And he's another guy who can block too. Like he can hit somebody. They when he was healthy would motion him into the backfield as like an H-back and let him clear lanes. So when you have that size power combination from there, like Michael Bandy was out there making plays, and they don't have a true slot receiver. So maybe there is a path for a guy like Michael Bandy, and that's probably more of a like Lil Jordan was last year, a guy who makes the practice squad because you don't worry about him being poached, and then you activate him a few times, and then you get to put him on the active roster when you really need him. But I don't think that this is just like 6 guys competing. There's at least 9 or 10, I think, who have at least some shot of being involved in like the game plan week 1.
And so that one is wide open.
It's so wide open.
But there's another competition that has been happening, I think going to happen, that's not wide open where both spots or every spot's up for grabs. We know Alex Singleton is one of the Broncos starting inside linebackers. And the other one, there's a real competition there with Cody Barton and Jonas Griffith. And Jonas Griffith, I think, is the one that the Broncos really, really, really want to step up, because when you talk about like a prototype inside linebacker outside of Todd Davis, it is Jonas Griffith. He is strong, he is big, he is fast, he is young, and he's been injured though. So he hasn't had those on-field reps, which I have to imagine like is even more important at inside linebacker than other positions because of just how much is happening. And as a cornerback, you can probably take some mental reps, and it's probably easier to miss some time and be able to get up to speed, but just inside linebacker, so much is happening around you. There's so much communication involved there. So I think they're really hoping he takes that step, but if not, then Cody Barton, the veteran who has so many starts under his belt, who was a starter for a couple of years there with Washington. But I really think that they want it to be Jonas Griffith to step up.
Yeah, I think he's very talented. I don't know if we talked about it on the show, but my first year, of retirement. I trained him in the offseason.
Oh.
And so I know he has the tools to be successful. He just battled through injuries. I think it was his first year trying to be the starter.
Yep.
That I trained him before that, but he's definitely talented and definitely has the build, the physicality. I think he was understanding the mental part of the game. And so it always sucks when you see a guy that has the physical traits and you're like, oh, he's picking up the mental too. And then they get injured. You're like, dang.
Yeah.
So hopefully, like, it all comes together. He's still fast. He's still big. He's still strong. Now, with a couple more years under his belt, the knowledge of the game and, his ability to be his best, hopefully is there too.
Yep. I mentioned this before, but Singleton looked good. Like there were a couple of runs where he's just boom. And you wonder again, like with the defensive line looking a little better, how much of that is him just making those plays and how much of it is like he finally has a little bit more room to work because of those guys. But he looked good.
Man, hey, I'll tell you as a linebacker, man, that D-line is probably the most important. But you know how, like, when a running back rushes for 2,000 yards, he buys everybody on the O-line like a Rolex. Like, when you have 150 tackles, you definitely got to buy the lineman something because they save you. They keep, double teams from coming up to you. Like, they're playing well. There's so much you can't do to me as a linebacker, like, super important.
And that was super important for the Broncos this offseason to get their defensive line better, to help the running game, to help those linebackers, to help every part of the defense. And I know it's early, but I have heard that these first 3 practices, the defensive line has maybe been the standout of this entire team so far. So that is huge because last year we went through a 4-game stretch, I think, where it was the worst 4-game stretch of run defense that the Broncos have had in their history. They've been around since, 1960?
Yeah.
And it was the worst 4-game stretch ever. And this is in a league where passing the football is more popular than ever. And they were that bad. So good news is Malcolm Roach, he's supposed to be a great run stopper. He's stepping up. But again, pads aren't on, but early returns are good so far. And I just, we can't end the show without talking about Tim Patrick. I know I mentioned him earlier. He's wearing number 12, his college number. And man, he is just, especially if things with Courtland don't get resolved soon, he's going to be a quarterback's absolute best friend because he was that before his injuries, and now he's also a leader, the veteran in that room right now. He made probably the catch of the day. A little debated on whether he was in or not, but I believe it was a back shoulder pass. He's going up the right sideline, and Bo decides to throw it back shoulder, kind of low on the ground. Tim makes a perfect adjustment on the ball because the cornerback was right on him. He makes a perfect adjustment, catches it with his 2 feet inbounds as he's falling, and he literally catches the ball like half a foot before he hits the ground, both feet in, hits the ground, and that's just the reliability that you get with a veteran like Tim Patrick. And just from like a human standpoint, it's awesome to see Tim back out there because I can't even imagine, I should say, how difficult it is to have an entire off season. You get to training camp, you get a season-ending injury. How difficult that is. And then the next season, you get healthy. The next offseason, you have an entire offseason. You're finally healthy. Then training camp comes around, and 1 week into training camp, it's ripped away from you again. And then you don't have any guaranteed money left on your contract, so you're not sure where you're going to play, if you're going to have a role. Then the Broncos do adjust his contract, bring him back. He's healthy now, and I'm really hoping that this new number gives him some new juju, and juice, because, man, he is going to be, I think, a very reliable part of this Broncos offense.
Yeah, I think him being here just shows how much the Broncos value him. I mean, I think it's very rare to have 2 season-ending injuries before the season, and the team still bring you back. I think they know who he is as a player. So I'm excited to see him come out and do what he does. Mr. Reliable, that's who he was before he was getting injured. And then I want to talk about the D-line, too. Yeah. I think this is the first time in a long time, maybe since I played, like, no knock to everybody that's played. I think we've had, like, tremendous starters, but I don't think we've had the rotation that they have now. I think they have a full rotation of two teams that have all started games in the NFL, as interior D linemen. So I'm excited for them to get out there and play well and really blow people away, man. I think they're going to be a good group. And once one gets tired, just send some more boys in, let them dogs hunt. So I don't think they're not kennel dogs. Those are like those are big dogs.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are dogs.
Yeah.
With that, especially the defensive line, unless you're a Chris Jones and Aaron Donald, like the best to do it, you are rotating a lot. So it is so key to what you said about not just having good starters, but having depth there. You have to have that if you want to be successful. And I do think the Broncos finally have that.
There's nothing worse than like seeing a coach from the sideline like, who the heck? Get back in the game. Like, like these guys are cutting it. Like, get you back in.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be good.
I know. And what they did was just like you basically replace Mike Purcell with Angelo Blackson, who honestly very similar player in a lot of ways, like similar age, played a lot of games. You add John Franklin Myers, which is like a nice addition. You add Malcolm Roach, which is a nice addition. And then you still have those young guys that you've invested in with Matt Henningsen and Elijah Garcia to kind of like battle out for that last spot. So it really does, like on paper, it just looks like how you want an NFL defensive line room to look.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, one more thing.
Yeah.
That throw to Tim Patrick, that was right in front of us. And so you can see like Bo look at Tim as he's running up there and like, I don't know, like Tim's covered. And then you see him try to throw it and you're like, okay, he's going to try this back shoulder. This is going to be it was just a perfect throw. Like it was beautiful. And the adjustment from Tim Patrick really was like that's a starting NFL receiver. Like that's a guy you put out there. That's not some young guy who you hope figures something out. That's like a guy you want on the field because he will make plays that help you win football games.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is right here is what I feel like Court is missing. Court's a great player, and I know that he can be good whenever he decides to come back, but just the ability to have this kind of like continuity that Tim Patrick is building. Because, I mean, like I don't want it to be week 3 and then both those are back shoulder and, you know, he was expecting more of a fade ball. And that's when it's like tough because you know that this chemistry building time is so important.
Yep. And you still have training camp, but also like even just for evaluating all these guys in the secondary, when you're going through all your rotations there, you're rotating the receivers. I think there's a real chance that Court would go out there and just torch everybody. Like, I think there's a real chance against this group of guys, that's what happens. And that would be very valuable information. Or maybe he doesn't torch everybody, but, you know, maybe today he's beating up on Riley. Maybe tomorrow he's beating up on Damari. And that's good practice for them.
Yeah.
But it's also good to see, like, who is holding their own against the guy here who we know can be a Pro Bowler, has been a Pro Bowler. Like, you're just missing that piece of the evaluation because it's more of a fair fight for a bunch of guys who are trying to prove themselves for a bunch of different reasons. Tim Patrick with the injuries, of course. And you would just like to have Court here.
And I think we realized, like, even from Peyton Manning, like, OTAs and training camp is not enough. Like, we need to be together, you know, with him being a veteran. Like, we're together in March. We're together in February. We go for 3 weeks. Okay, then we go through OTAs. Okay, now the whole month of July before training camp, like, we're throwing.
Yep.
We're away from our families. I'm throwing day in and day out for 3 weeks before we even start training camp. Like, I think you can't, you know what I'm saying? Guys need more time just to OTAs and training camp to be ready for a true NFL season and to be great. I mean, if that's the level we're all trying to be, if we're all trying to win Super Bowls, if we're all trying to be Peyton Manning level, like, it takes a lot more time than just what the coaches are here to watch and, you know, help you build.
And he's doing that after 3 years of playing with those guys.
Exactly.
You know, in this case, Bo Nix, he has potentially never thrown a football to Courtland Sutton before. You wouldn't think that he had. So, like, if Peyton Manning is doing that after playing with those receivers for multiple years, it'd just be so valuable, especially for a team that's gotten off to slow starts for 3 consecutive seasons. I can't remember the one before that. To have that added continuity, added chemistry.
These
OTAs
OTAs plus minicamp is 13 practices. Training camp is about 13 practices. So in terms of that time, you're missing half of it right now if he does miss all of this. And to your point, Todd, even if it is half of it, but it's really only 20% of the equation, that's still 20%. That's significant. So speaking of Court, we got a super chat in here from Andrew who says, would you trade Courtland Sutton for Darren Waller?
So if you guys remember last offseason, right before the season, we were talking about the Raiders, and I said that losing Darren Waller isn't that much of a loss because he's kind of washed at this point, and everybody said I was crazy. And then what we found was that Darren Waller is washed, and so no, I certainly would not.
Yeah, he got a lot of issues going on right now.
Yeah.
He just got divorced.
That's true.
Trying to figure
Just
himself
after getting
out.
married, too.
Yeah.
You were at Courtland's wedding. They're great.
Yeah, they're solid. Everything's good. Everything's good.
Yeah.
If washed is 52 receptions for 552 yards from the tight end position with the New York Giants, sign me up. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? It doesn't matter what the hell I think. I think it's what Sean Payton thinks. I think he would do that trade. And that is no disrespect to Courtland Sutton. I believe very, very strongly that Sean Payton values that receiving position from the tight end and the receiving position from the running back that much, where he has to have that. And then the receivers, it's great to have Michael Thomas, but Marquise Colston, a 7th-round pick, led his team in receiving when he was a rookie, a 7th-round pick rookie. He doesn't care. He's going to play the guys. He's going to be able to make the receivers fit his system as long as he has a dynamic receiving tight end and a dynamic receiving running back. So I think Sean would make that. Because like you said, Henry, the Broncos have like 8 other receivers that can be guys. A guy, and I think that's what Sean's looking for, is just guys at receiver, guys that can make catches and can run 5-yard routes, but he needs a dude, the guy at receiving tight end. So I think Sean would make that trade.
I think we overlook the fact that Sean did it with some guys and think that he could do it with every guy. I don't know if he could do it with every, but like he still needs a guy to be the guy. Like Marcus Colston was a phenomenal receiver, like whether he was like highly touted or not, like he was a great receiver once he was out there. I don't know if every receiver, just because you play receiver, you can turn into the guy.
And I think
if you have Josh Reynolds, you have Tim Patrick, like you have good enough guys.
There's just a different tier.
But even when guys came to the Saints, he didn't make them Marcus Colston again. Like we've had receivers come to the Saints, even when I was there, they weren't taking anybody's job. He, you know what I'm saying? He helped them be good, but I wouldn't just say like every guy he even brought in or every guy he drafted was another ultimately like successful wide receiver.
Yeah. And I think if it was back-to-back 1,100-yard season Darren Waller, then you make the trade. It's just Darren Waller at this point who's giving you...
He said he's washed. I take 550. 52 catches and 552 yards?
I mean, what did Dulcich do his rookie year?
Not that,
but I mean, he was pretty close considering only
I wouldn't
played.
say that's washed as a tight end.
No, but Noah Fant did that his first 2 years with the Broncos.
You got to think about Zach Wilson and their woes as an offense. Yeah. Like, he still had numbers. I mean...
It was
Tommy DeVito, exactly.
Yeah. But Darren Waller, again, like, Darren Waller had back-to-back 1,100-yard seasons. Like, he is... If you're just looking at the numbers, half of what he was at that point. Like, that's a guy who changes an offense.
Courtland Sutton was a 700-yard receiver last year. You're talking about him like he's an 1,100-yard receiver. He wasn't.
I mean, 10 touchdowns goes a long way, though.
How many catches does Courtland have?
I don't know, 40-something probably.
So Darren Waller from a tight end position had more catches,
but look
and
at
you're
the
saying
production.
He's washed?
But look at the production.
That's what I'm looking at. That's exactly what I'm looking at. What are you talking about? No, so you're not talking about production. You're talking about just touchdowns.
Darren Waller used to be a great tight end. Now he's fine.
Before last year, how many touchdowns did Courtland Sutton have? I think he had 2 in 26 games.
The year before last year, Darren Waller had like 300 yards. Darren Waller is not what he was. I think that's clear.
I don't think he's washed though. I think I think he could still put up good numbers in the right system. But I wouldn't trade him for Courtland because even to your point, Zach, I feel like even with a good tight end, the receiver always leads the team in receiving. Like,
yeah, it's fair.
And so I think we still need that guy. I think Tim Patrick can do it. I think he's just, you know what I'm saying? He's building back up. I think it takes time to really get back fully healthy and fully good. Even though he looks great now, I think it's going to take him maybe a couple more months to really be like the TP that we all love.
I'm going to have a word with Henry after this. He's forgetting a major piece of today that fits in with this conversation. So let's hit this final super chat before we get out of here. And the final super chat coming in from Julian, who says, what impressions do you guys have of Zach Wilson first day of OTAs besides the interception? I hope he can turn his career around. It was about what I expected. Zach Wilson can kind of get a little scrambled, and you see that on tape with the New York Jets all the time. It probably didn't help being with the Jets, where that's not a very good franchise to be with, especially when everything's being built around Aaron Rodgers last year. Then he's thrown in, and before that, it wasn't the best setup for him. He was not in a good spot, and I think he needs a year of football rehab, and I think we kind of saw that today. One of the only thing you can't do in 7-on-7s. And 7-on-7s is when there's no offensive line, no defensive line. It's just the skill position players on each side. So you got linebackers and defensive backs, and then on offense, that's exactly it.
He ran.
And the only thing I can think of, you know exactly it. When he did that, I just thought Paxton Lynch. Because Paxton did that a couple of times in 7-on-7s. That's the one thing you can't do. Don't throw an interception, but throw the ball up. Throw it away or something. You can't run. And when he did that, it was just like, man, I think this guy needs... And from things that I heard behind the scenes, he's just nervous. He's just freaked out because of kind of the trauma that he had with the Jets and being in such a bad spot, getting sacked so many times and not having good coaching. And Sean Payton knows this, though. Sean Payton knows that Zach just needs a big step back right now. So that's when I think it boils down to. I think we saw it today, what it's going to boil down to. Zach Wilson, probably a year of football rehab here. The quarterback competition is going to get him down to Bo Nix and Jarrett Stidham, and I think the Bo is eventually going to win out.
Yeah, and... First of all, for all of my thoughts on Zach Wilson, I think there's like 30 clips I cut up that are on the website, thednvr.com. So go look at that. But after I went through all that, went back and watched some games and saw what he did, I was talking to Dre. I was like, this is kind of weird because like all of the things that were his strengths as a prospect are now the weaknesses. And Dre was like, yeah, he's basically a neutered puppy. And that's essentially what happened to him is, he got in trouble throwing some of those deep balls, which is what his game was all about. And they really forced him to work on the underneath stuff. So he's not even seeing the deep stuff. He's not even trying it. And they really just broke him as a prospect. Like they just took away his strengths, asked him to work on the weaknesses. And there's definitely some signs of growth there. Like, for example, today, there was one play. Again, it's just the most simple read for a quarterback. You have a running back lined up out wide and a linebacker follows him out there. It's man coverage. It's that simple. Like, you know exactly what it is. And so he took advantage. He hit a guy on, I think it was a slant or something, and let him run. So you see some of that, but that's quarterback 101. It's like a starting point. What you need is to see him like grow from there and from there. And again, like I think there were the two plays that you look at and say, those were really not good, and the rest was fine. Fine at worst. And I think you see the ball come out of his hand, and it looks nice. It's just that as a quarterback, you need to bat 1,000. Like, again, like Drew Brees, the ball didn't touch the ground during practice. You need to be so perfect all the way through, and there's just a couple of those mistakes, and a lot of that's just like building from there. So I agree. It's just football rehab, and you can see some of like the signs, but you need to get him back to where he was while adding the other stuff. And I not just based on today, but I think there's a long way to go there, just like you would imagine there would be a long way to go.
Yep. And we have a long way to go until the Broncos season, but we're already getting some practices in and under our belt. Thank you all so much for tuning in for an in-depth breakdown of what happened at Broncos training camp. We've got one more show this week. Tomorrow, we're going to be back at our normal time, 11 a.m., so make sure to stay tuned on YouTube. Thank you, Henry. Thank you, Todd. Thank you here, and thank you to everyone tuning in. Hit us with a thumbs up on your way out. Have a terrific Thursday.
We all silly like the mayor.